The crystal spires of Zalara Prime sang their death song across the amber sky. Harmonics that once carried joy and knowledge now screamed with terror and pain. The beautiful towers that had stood for 10,000 years cracked and shattered as massive mining ships descended from orbit like hungry metal beasts. Zathara pressed her crystalline hands against the communication console, her body glowing with desperate blue light. As the prime harmonist of the Zalarian Confederacy, she had guided her people through countless peaceful negotiations. She had helped solve trade disputes with gentle words and had welcomed dozens of alien species to their world with open arms. Never had she imagined sending a message like this. All peaceful species of the galaxy. She sang into the transmitter, her voice carrying across subspace waves that would reach every corner of known space. The Zalarian Confederacy calls for help. We are under attack by the Korth Empire. Our people are dying. Our worlds are being consumed. We need evacuation ships. We need medical supplies. We need someone to help us survive. Around her, the crystal city shook as another Korth harvester landed. These silicon-based monsters had swept across 3 star systems in the past month. They did not want territory or slaves or tributes. They wanted the rare minerals that made up the Zalarian homeworld. They wanted to eat the planet itself. Please, Zathara continued, her light flickering with exhaustion. We have offered them everything we own. We have tried to negotiate. They do not listen. They only take and destroy. Any species that can hear this message, we beg for your mercy. Help us escape. Help us save our children. The building shook again. Through the crystal walls, Zathara could see Korth soldiers moving through the streets. They looked like walking rocks with too many arms and glowing red eyes. Each one stood 3 times taller than a Zalarian. Their weapons turned crystal buildings to dust with single shots. Velthin, her assistant, rushed into the room. His normally green glow had turned pale yellow with fear. Prime Harmonist, the defense grid has failed. The orbital platforms are gone. The Korth will reach the communication center within the hour. Zathara nodded and turned back to the transmitter. She had to keep sending the message. Someone in the galaxy had to hear them. Someone had to care enough to help. We are not warriors, she sang. We have never built weapons of war. We have always believed that peace and knowledge could solve any problem. We were wrong. The Korth do not want peace. They want only destruction. If anyone can hear this transmission, please remember that the Zalarian people once existed. Remember that we tried to bring harmony to the stars. The door to the communication chamber exploded inward. Korth soldiers poured through the opening, their massive forms barely fitting through the crystal doorway. Their leader pointed a weapon that looked like a twisted piece of metal at Zathara. Turn off that machine, crystal creature. The Korth growled in broken galactic standard. No one will come to help you. Your world belongs to the Empire now. Zathara looked at the transmitter controls. The message was still broadcasting. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone might hear it. Someone might care. She pressed her hand against the power coupling and sang one last note. The transmitter exploded in a shower of crystal fragments and bright light. The Korth leader roared in anger and fired his weapon. Zathara felt her crystal body crack and begin to fade. As darkness closed around her, she heard something impossible. The transmitter was still working. Broken pieces of crystal were somehow still carrying her voice across the stars. Far above the planet, more Korth ships continued their harvest. They had done this to dozens of worlds before. They would strip Zalara Prime of every valuable mineral, then move on to the next target. The Zalarians were just another weak species that could not defend itself. But the message was spreading across subspace faster than the Korth could stop it. On peaceful trading worlds, alien merchants heard the desperate plea and shared it with their friends. On scientific research stations, scholars recorded the transmission and debated what to do. On military outposts belonging to various species, commanders listened to the message and shook their heads sadly. The Zalarians were asking for help, but no one wanted to fight the Korth Empire. The Korth had destroyed every military force that had tried to stop them. They had weapons that could crack planets and ships that could survive the explosion of stars. Most civilized species in the galaxy had learned to stay out of their way. When the Korth came, you ran or you died. There was no third option. At least that was what everyone believed. The message traveled for days, bouncing from relay station to relay station. It passed through sectors controlled by the peaceful Altarian Council, where philosophers discussed whether intervention was morally required. It reached the territory of the militant Vortok clans. where warlords calculated whether fighting the Korth was worth the cost. It even made it to the isolated worlds of the ancient Keeper species, who had been watching the galaxy for millions of years. All of them heard the message. All of them felt sorry for the Zilarians. None of them sent help. The transmission kept traveling, moving further and further from the galactic core toward the outer rim territories. It passed beyond the borders of known space into regions that most civilized species avoided. There were dangerous things in the outer rim, savage worlds where evolution had gone wrong, planets where the very air could kill you and the animals hunted in packs. One of these worlds was a small blue-green planet in an unremarkable solar system. The locals called it Earth. The rest of the galaxy called it a death world if they bothered to call it anything at all. Most species avoided death worlds. Why would anyone want to visit a place where gravity could crush you, where the weather could freeze or burn you to death, and where every life form had evolved to be a perfect killer? The few exploration teams that had studied Earth from a safe distance had filed reports that made other aliens shudder with horror. But the message reached Earth anyway, picked up by listening stations that the humans had built in orbit around their impossible world. And unlike every other species in the galaxy, the humans did not hear a hopeless plea from a dying civilization. They heard someone calling for help. Deep in the Luna Command Center, Admiral Sarah Chen studied the translated message on her screen. Around her, communication officers worked frantically to clean up the signal and improve the translation. The harmonics that the Zilarians used for language were unlike anything humans had encountered before. "Are we sure about this translation?" Chen asked her chief linguist. "The harmonic patterns are clear, Admiral," the woman replied. "They are asking for salvation and deliverance from something called the Korth Empire. They mention evacuation and medical supplies, but the core message is a request for immediate intervention." Chen nodded. The translation might not be perfect, but the meaning was obvious. Someone was in trouble and needed help. That was enough for her. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "All ships are to prepare for immediate departure. We have a rescue mission." Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, watching stars streak past through the main viewport. The massive dreadnought cut through space at the head of the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled. 200 ships from every branch of the Terran Defense Forces followed in perfect formation. The fleet included everything humanity could spare. Battleships with armor thick enough to survive asteroid impacts. Destroyers built to hunt down enemy vessels in the radiation-soaked space around Earth's sun. Carriers loaded with fighters designed to operate in the vacuum of space. Medical ships equipped to handle casualties from a dozen different types of alien biology. Chen had served in space for 20 years, ever since humanity first developed faster-than-light travel. She had seen the wonders of the galaxy and met some of its peaceful inhabitants. But this was different. This was the first time humans would face a real enemy in battle. "Status report," she called out. Commander Williams, her tactical officer, checked his displays. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral." Estimated arrival at the Zilara system in 6 hours. "Any word from the Zilarians since we left Earth?" "Negative, ma'am. The subspace channels have gone silent. We are not picking up any more transmissions from their homeworld." Chen frowned. That could mean many things, and most of them were bad. Either the Zilarians had been forced to stop broadcasting, or there was no one left alive to send messages. "What do we know about this Korth Empire?" she asked. Lieutenant Commander Park, the intelligence officer, pulled up a holographic display. "Very little, Admiral. Our databases have only basic information. The Korth are silicon-based life forms from the galactic core region. They appear to be aggressive expansionists who have conquered dozens of star systems in the past 50 years. Most species we have contacted refuse to talk about them. Weapons and technology, unknown. The few reports we have suggest they use some form of energy weapons and have ships capable of planetary bombardment. Beyond that, we are going in blind." Chen nodded. It would not be the first time humans had faced an unknown enemy. Earth's history was full of battles where people fought against impossible odds and won through determination and clever tactics. Communications, send a message to all ship commanders. Remind them that we are on a rescue mission. Our primary goal is to save the Zilarians. We engage hostile forces only if they attack us first, or if they prevent us from completing our mission. "Yes, Admiral." The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Chen watched the stars and thought about the message they had received. The Zilarians sounded like peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. The idea that someone would attack them for no reason made her angry. Humans understood what it was like to be the underdog. Earth's history was full of stories about small groups of people standing up to larger, more powerful enemies. Sometimes they lost, but sometimes they won. And when they won, it was usually because they refused to give up no matter how bad things looked. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out. "Long-range scanners are picking up something. Multiple ships in the Zalara system. Lots of them." Chen moved to the sensor station. The display showed dozens of contacts orbiting the Zalarian homeworld. More ships were scattered throughout the system, some moving between planets. "Can you identify the ship types?" "Working on it, ma'am. The designs do not match anything in our database. They appear to be of Korth origin." "How many?" "At least 80 ships in orbit around Zalara Prime. More are spread throughout the system. Total count is over 100 contacts." Chen studied the tactical display. The Korth had brought a large force to attack the Zalarians. That suggested they either expected heavy resistance or they wanted to make sure they could crush any opposition quickly. "Any sign of Zalarian ships?" "Negative. If they have any vessels left, they are powered down or destroyed." That was not good news. Chen had hoped to link up with surviving Zalarian forces and coordinate their rescue efforts. Without local help, the mission would be much more difficult. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Battle stations. We are going in." The Indomitable's alarm klaxons began to sound as the crew prepared for combat. All around the flagship, human warships activated their weapons and shields. Gun turrets swiveled to track potential targets. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. As they approached the edge of the Zalara system, Chen felt the familiar calm that came before battle. She had trained for this moment her entire career. Humanity had built its space forces to protect Earth from alien threats. Now they would find out if their ships and weapons could stand up to a real enemy. Dropping out of faster than light in 3, 2, 1. The stars stopped streaking and returned to normal. Ahead of them, the Zalara system spread out in all its glory. The primary star was a warm yellow sun similar to Earth's. 4 planets orbited in the habitable zone, their surfaces glittering with what looked like crystal formations, and surrounding the beautiful worlds were the Korth ships. Chen had seen many alien vessels during humanity's first contacts with other species. Most were graceful designs that spoke of advanced technology and peaceful intentions. The Korth ships looked like weapons that had been built to kill. They were dark metal rectangles covered with spikes and gun turrets. They moved through space like predators stalking prey. "My God," Williams whispered. "Look at the planet." Chen turned her attention to Zalara Prime. The once beautiful crystal world was scarred with massive mining operations. Huge chunks of the surface had been carved away, leaving ugly wounds in the planet's crust. Several Korth ships were connected to the surface by what looked like enormous drilling equipment. They are not just attacking, Chen realized. They are strip mining the entire planet. "Admiral, we are being scanned," the sensor officer reported. "Multiple Korth ships are turning in our direction." Chen gripped the arms of her command chair. This was it. First contact with a hostile alien species. Everything humanity had worked for, everything they had built would be tested in the next few hours. "Open a channel to the Korth fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Admiral." Chen took a deep breath. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Forces. We have received a distress call from the Zalarian people. We demand that you cease your attack immediately and allow us to evacuate any survivors." Static filled the channel for several seconds. Then a harsh, grinding voice responded in broken galactic standard. "Human ships, you do not belong here. Leave now or be destroyed. This world belongs to the Korth Empire. We will not abandon innocent people," Chen replied firmly. "Withdraw your forces and we will not interfere with your operations elsewhere." The alien voice laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "You bring 200 ships against the might of the Empire and think you can make demands? Your species is young and foolish. You will learn respect through pain." Chen looked around her bridge. Her officers stared back at her with determined expressions. These were people who had volunteered to serve in space, far from the safety of Earth. They knew the risks when they signed up. "All ships," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "The Korth have refused our diplomatic solution. They will not allow us to rescue the Zalarians. Under the authority of the Terran Defense Charter, I am authorizing the use of force to complete our mission." Show them what happens when someone threatens innocent people. 200 human warships began to move forward, their weapons charging and their crews ready for battle. Behind them, the empty space where Earth's sun was just a distant star seemed very far away. Admiral Chen watched the Korth ships beginning to move into attack formation and smiled grimly. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought humans were just another weak species that would run away when threatened. They were about to learn why Earth was called a death world. General Vexthor stood in the command center of his flagship, the Iron Devourer, watching the unknown ships approach his fleet. The massive Korth commander was twice the size of his subordinates, his rocky hide scarred from 100 battles. Red eyes glowed in the darkness of his skull as he studied the tactical display. Analysis, he rumbled to his tactical officer. 200 vessels of unknown design, General. They appear to be military ships based on their formation and approach vector. Energy signatures suggest they have weapons and shields, but the technology is unfamiliar. Vexthor grunted. In 50 years of conquest, he had faced dozens of alien species. Most surrendered after seeing the size of his fleet. The few that fought were quickly crushed by superior Korth firepower and tactics. What species are they? They call themselves humans, General. We have no records of them in our databases. Humans. Vexthor repeated the word, tasting it. Another weak species that thinks it can challenge the Empire. Show them the price of interference. On the surface of Zillara Prime, the few surviving Zilarians cowered in underground shelters as the mining operations continued above them. Velthin pressed his face against a crystal viewing port and watched the sky with growing terror. There are more ships coming, he whispered to the other survivors. So many ships. Elder Morden, one of the oldest Zilarians still alive, dimmed his natural glow to almost nothing. Perhaps they heard our message. Perhaps someone has come to help us. Or perhaps another empire has come to fight over our world, Velthin replied. We could be caught between two armies. Above them, the first shots of the battle were about to be fired. Admiral Chen watched the Korth formation spread out to meet her fleet. The alien ships moved with military precision, forming a battle line that would let them bring maximum firepower to bear. These were clearly experienced warriors who had done this many times before. Sensors show the Korth ships are charging weapons, Commander Williams reported. Energy levels are rising across their entire fleet. Return the favor, Chen ordered. All ships charge weapons but do not fire until fired upon. We are still hoping for a peaceful solution. The two fleets approached each other like ancient sailing ships preparing for battle. The space between them crackled with energy. As hundreds of weapon systems powered up, stars provided the only light in the darkness, casting strange shadows across ship hulls. Admiral, the communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It is in Zilarian harmonic language. Put it through the translator. A series of musical tones filled the bridge, followed by the computer's attempt to convert them into human speech. The voice sounded frightened and desperate. Unknown ships, please do not fight above our world. Too many of our people have died already. We do not want to be the cause of more death. Chen felt a surge of anger. Even facing extinction, the Zilarians were worried about others getting hurt because of them. These were exactly the kind of people humanity should be protecting. Send a reply, she ordered. Tell them we have come to help. Tell them to take shelter and stay away from the mining operations. Before the message could be sent, the Korth opened fire. Beams of crimson energy lanced across space, targeting the lead human ships. The Korth weapons were powerful, designed to crack planetary shields and melt through heavy armor. They had destroyed countless enemy fleets with these same weapons, but human ships were not built like other vessels in the galaxy. The energy beams struck the forward shields of the TDF Indomitable and simply disappeared. The ship's deflector grid, designed to protect against solar radiation and cosmic debris around Earth, absorbed the attack without even flickering. No damage, Williams reported, sounding surprised. Their weapons barely registered on our shields. Chen smiled grimly. Return fire. All ships engage at will. The human fleet responded with a devastating barrage. Kinetic railguns fired metal slugs at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Particle beam weapons designed to cut through asteroids sliced into Korth armor. Missile launchers sent smart projectiles that could track and kill enemy ships. The difference was immediately obvious. Human weapons had been built to function in one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy. Earth's magnetosphere was filled with deadly radiation. The planet's gravity well was strong enough to crush most alien species. Solar flares regularly sent waves of energy that could fry electronic systems. Every human ship had been designed to not just survive in that environment, but to fight in it. The first Korth ship to take a direct hit from a human railgun simply disappeared. The metal slug punched through its armor, through its hull, and out the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole. The ship's atmosphere vented into space as its crew died instantly. Impossible, Vexthor growled, watching his tactical display update. What kind of weapons are those? Unknown technology, General. Our armor appears to be ineffective against their kinetic weapons. 3 more Korth ships exploded as human missiles found their targets. The warheads were designed to penetrate deep into a target before detonating, maximizing internal damage. Against Korth ships, which relied on thick external armor for protection, they were devastatingly effective. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship, Vexthor ordered. Destroy their command ship and the rest will scatter. 50 Korth vessels turned their weapons on the Indomitable. Energy beams that could melt continents focused on the human flagship. The space around Chen's ship glowed like a small star as the alien weapons poured fire into her shields. Shield status, Chen called out as the bridge shook. Holding at 90%, Williams replied. Their weapons are not penetrating our defensive grid, Chen nodded. Human shield technology was based on the magnetic fields that protected Earth from solar radiation. The same principles that kept a planet safe from the fury of a star worked just as well against alien energy weapons. Target their flagship, she ordered. Full spread all forward batteries. The Indomitable unleashed its main armament. 20 railgun turrets fired in sequence, sending a stream of projectiles toward the Iron Devourer. Each slug carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. Vexthor watched the projectiles approach on his tactical display. They were moving so fast that his point defense systems could not track them. The first slug punched through his ship's frontal armor like it was made of paper. The second took out his main weapons array. The third penetrated the command deck. The Korth general had time for one last thought before the fourth projectile reached his position. These humans were not like any species he had encountered before. They fought like creatures that had evolved to kill or be killed. Then the Iron Devourer exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. The destruction of their flagship sent shockwaves through the Korth fleet. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds through superior firepower and intimidation. They had never faced an enemy whose weapons could simply ignore their defenses. New contacts, the sensor officer aboard the Indomitable reported. More Korth ships are approaching from the outer system. Chen looked at her tactical display. The reinforcements would arrive in less than an hour. Her fleet had destroyed 30 Korth ships while losing only 2 human vessels, but they were still outnumbered. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Pursue the retreating Korth ships. Do not let them regroup and counterattack. The human ships accelerated, chasing the surviving Korth vessels. The aliens had expected an easy victory against another weak species. Instead, they found themselves running for their lives from weapons they did not understand and tactics they could not counter. In the underground shelters on Zalara Prime, the surviving Zalarians listened to the sounds of battle above them. The mining operations had stopped. The Korth soldiers who had been patrolling the streets were rushing back to their ships. What is happening up there? Velthin asked. Elder Morden's crystals glowed with faint hope. Perhaps the universe has not forgotten us after all. Above them, the human fleet continued its relentless advance. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge and watched Korth ships flee in all directions. These aliens had made a critical mistake. They had attacked someone who had called for help, and humans never abandoned their friends. Communications, send a message to the planet's surface, Chen ordered. Tell the Zalarians that help has arrived. Tell them the Terran Defense Forces are here. The message was transmitted in carefully translated Zalarian harmonics. On the planet below, crystal beings who had given up hope began to sing again. For the first time in weeks, their songs carried joy instead of despair. The Deathworlders had come to save them. Captain Maria Rodriguez gripped the assault shuttle's safety restraints as her pilot dove toward the surface of Zalara Prime. Around her, 40 Marines in full combat armor checked their weapons and equipment one final time. The shuttle shook as Korth surface batteries fired at them, but the pilot kept them on course toward their target. 2 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced over the comm system. Korth mining platform dead ahead. Rodriguez looked out the viewport at their objective. The alien structure was a massive complex of drilling equipment and processing facilities. built directly into the crystal surface of the planet. Korth soldiers moved between the buildings like armored insects, their weapons ready to repel any attack. "Listen up, Marines," Rodriguez called out to her squad. "Intelligence says there are at least 50 hostiles down there, plus automated defenses. The Korth have been using this facility to strip mine the planet for 3 weeks. Our job is to shut it down and rescue any Zalarian prisoners." The shuttle's rear door opened, revealing the alien landscape below. Crystal formations jutted up from the ground like frozen lightning. The sky was the color of amber, with 2 small moons visible in the distance. It would have been beautiful if not for the ugly scars left by Korth mining operations. "Go, go, go!" The Marines rappelled down lines into the chaos of battle. Korth soldiers immediately opened fire with energy weapons that could melt stone, but the humans were ready for them. Rodriguez hit the ground running, her rifle already tracking targets. The weapon in her hands was designed to kill the most dangerous predators on Earth. Against alien soldiers, it was devastating. Her first shot punched through a Korth warrior's armor and dropped him instantly. "Spread out and advance," she ordered. "Williams, take your team left. Johnson, go right." We envelop them and squeeze. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency across the crystal battlefield. They had trained for combat in every environment Earth could offer, from Arctic ice to desert heat to underwater operations. Fighting on an alien world was just another day at the office. Sergeant Williams led his squad around a cluster of mining equipment, using the massive machines for cover. The Korth weapons were powerful, but they fired in straight lines. Humans had learned to use terrain and obstacles to their advantage during millions of years of evolution as persistence hunters. "Contact front," Williams reported as 3 Korth soldiers rounded a corner. The aliens were huge, each one standing over 8 feet tall and weighing as much as a small vehicle. Their rocky hide was tough enough to stop most energy weapons, but human bullets were not energy weapons. Williams and his Marines opened fire with automatic rifles. The bullets were made from depleted uranium, designed to penetrate the heaviest armor Earth's militaries could imagine. Against Korth hide, they performed exactly as intended. The first alien went down with 6 rounds center mass. The second tried to take cover behind a mining laser, but found that human bullets could punch through the alien metal. The third managed to return fire, his energy weapon scoring the ground where Williams had been standing a moment before. Williams was no longer there. He had moved to a new position while his target was firing, using the classic infantry tactic of shoot, move, and communicate. The Korth warrior turned to track him and walked directly into a crossfire from 2 other Marines. "Target down," Williams reported, continuing advance. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human tactics proved superior to Korth brute force. The aliens were strong and well-armed, but they fought like creatures that had never faced serious opposition. They stood in the open and relied on their armor to protect them. They fired from fixed positions and expected their enemies to do the same. Humans fought like apex predators that had earned their place at the top of Earth's food chain through intelligence and adaptability. Captain Rodriguez reached the main processing building and planted charges on the primary support structure. The Korth had built their facility to last, but human explosives were designed to crack bunkers and destroy bridges. Against alien architecture, they were more than adequate. "All teams report status," she called over the comm. "Team 2 has secured the eastern approach," came the reply. "Multiple enemy casualties, no friendly losses. Team 3 has taken the western mining platform. We found 12 Zalarian prisoners in holding cells. They are weak but alive." Rodriguez smiled grimly. The mission was going better than expected. The Korth had clearly never faced an enemy that used combined arms tactics and coordinated fire support. "Team 4, what is your status?" "We have reached the central command center. The Korth commander is barricaded inside with about 20 soldiers. They are refusing to surrender." Rodriguez checked her tactical display. The main facility was almost secured, but the command center contained the controls for the entire mining operation. If they could capture it intact, they might be able to shut down similar facilities across the planet. "Hold position." "Team 4, I am en route with breaching charges." She sprinted across the crystal battlefield, dodging occasional energy blasts from Korth snipers. The enemy was still dangerous, but their coordination was breaking down. Without their fleet support and facing an enemy they did not understand, the Korth ground forces were losing cohesion. The command center was a fortified bunker built into the side of a crystal hill. Korth soldiers had turned it into a strong point with overlapping fields of fire and heavy weapons emplacements. It would have been a tough nut to crack for most military forces, but the Marines had... Rodriguez. She studied the building's structure with the eye of someone who had spent years learning how to assault enemy positions. The Korth had built their defenses to face attacks from other Korth, creatures that fought with energy weapons and frontal assaults. They had not prepared for humans who used explosives and flanking maneuvers. Johnson, take your team around back. Use the crystal formations for cover and look for a way in. Williams, set up overwatch on that ridge and keep their heads down. I will go through the front door. Captain, that is heavily defended, Williams protested. Trust me, Sergeant. I have an idea. Rodriguez pulled out a device that looked like a small metal cylinder. It was a sonic disruptor, designed to interfere with electronic systems by generating specific frequencies. Human engineers had built it to disable enemy sensors and communications equipment, but the Zalarians had mentioned that they communicated through harmonic frequencies. If their technology was based on sound waves, then a sonic disruptor might do more than just jam their signals. She activated the device and threw it toward the command center. The cylinder landed near the main entrance and immediately began generating a complex pattern of sound waves. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every piece of Korth equipment in the building began to malfunction. Weapon systems shut down. Communication networks failed. Even the lights flickered and died as the sonic frequencies interfered with alien technology that relied on crystalline components. Now, Rodriguez ordered. The Marines stormed the command center while the defenders were still trying to figure out what had happened to their weapons. The battle was over in minutes. Korth soldiers who had seemed invincible behind their fortifications were helpless without their technology. Facility secured, Rodriguez reported to Admiral Chen. Mining operations have been shut down. We have rescued 37 Zalarian prisoners and captured 42 enemy soldiers. Excellent work, Captain. How are our casualties? 3 wounded, none serious. The Korth fight hard, but they do not adapt well to changing tactics. High above the planet, Admiral Chen received similar reports from assault teams across Zilara Prime. Human Marines had captured or destroyed every major Korth installation on the surface. The alien invasion force that had seemed unstoppable was crumbling under pressure from troops who fought with a flexibility and creativity that the Korth had never encountered. Admiral, Commander Williams called from the tactical station. Long-range sensors are detecting the Korth reinforcement fleet. They will arrive in 4 hours. Chen studied the sensor readings. The reinforcements included over 200 ships, including several massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. The Korth were bringing everything they had to retake the system. Signal all ships, she ordered. Prepare for Phase 2 operations. It is time to show these aliens what happens when you threaten innocent people. The human fleet began to move into new positions around the Zilara system. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had advantages that the Korth could not understand. Human ships were crewed by people who had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They did not know how to give up. In the underground shelters on Zilara Prime, the surviving Zalarians listened to the sounds of the human assault teams moving through their cities. For the first time in weeks, the mining operations had stopped. The constant noise of drilling and processing equipment was replaced by the voices of rescuers. They are really here to help us, Velthan whispered in amazement. They came across space to save people they had never met. Elder Morden's crystal body glowed with wonder. Perhaps there is still hope in the universe after all. Above them, the humans prepared for the largest space battle in their short history. They were about to face an enemy with superior numbers and technology. But they had something the Korth did not. The Korth reinforcement fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zilara system and immediately realized they had made a terrible mistake. Instead of finding their invasion force celebrating another easy victory, they discovered a graveyard of twisted metal and debris floating in space. Fleet Commander Grathuk stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Over 200 Korth ships had been destroyed or disabled. The mining operations on Zilara Prime had gone silent, and moving through the wreckage like prowling wolves were the human vessels, their weapons trained on any Korth ship that dared to move. What happened here? Grathuk demanded of his intelligence officer. The humans happened, Commander. Our advance fleet engaged them in battle and was completely destroyed. Ground forces report total defeat across all occupied territories. The humans have rescued thousands of Zalarian prisoners and captured our remaining soldiers. Grathuk had commanded Korth fleets for 30 years. He had conquered star systems and destroyed entire civilizations. Never had he seen such complete devastation of a superior force. How many human ships were lost? Intelligence estimates no more than 20 vessels destroyed, Commander. Their technology appears to be far more advanced than our initial reports suggested. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the Korth reinforcements hesitate at the system's edge. The alien commanders were clearly trying to decide whether to attack or retreat. She was happy to help them make that decision. "Open a channel to the Korth fleet," she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Forces. Your invasion of this system has failed. Your ground forces have surrendered. Your mining operations have been shut down. You have one chance to leave this system peacefully. Take it." The response came quickly in the same grinding voice that characterized Korth communications. "Human Admiral, you have interfered with the rightful expansion of the Korth Empire. This aggression will not be tolerated. Surrender now and we will grant you a quick death." Chen almost laughed. Even facing complete defeat, the Korth were still trying to intimidate their enemies. It was exactly the kind of behavior she would expect from bullies who had never faced serious opposition. "I will take that as a refusal of our generous offer," she replied. "All ships execute Operation Payback." The human fleet had spent the last 4 hours preparing for this moment. While rescue teams worked on the planet's surface, the naval forces had deployed a network of sensor buoys and communication relays throughout the system. They had also positioned their ships in carefully chosen locations that would give them maximum tactical advantage. Now it was time to use those advantages. The first wave of the attack came from stealth missiles launched hours earlier. The weapons had drifted through space on ballistic trajectories, their engines cold and their signatures masked. The Korth sensors never detected them until they activated their final guidance systems mere minutes before impact. 50 Korth ships disappeared in the opening salvo before their commanders even realized they were under attack. The remaining vessels tried to scatter, but found themselves facing human ships that seemed to appear from behind asteroids and debris fields. Fleet Commander Grathuk watched his forces die and finally understood what his predecessors had faced. The humans did not fight like civilized species. They used ambush tactics and psychological warfare. They struck from unexpected angles and disappeared before the enemy could respond. "All ships retreat to the jump point," he ordered. "We will return with a larger force." But the humans were not done with them yet. Captain Jessica Torres commanded the destroyer TDF Relentless, one of the fastest ships in the human fleet. She had positioned her vessel near the system's edge, waiting for exactly this moment. "Target the lead Korth ship," she ordered her weapons officer. "Hit their engines, but do not destroy them. I want them alive to spread the word." The Relentless fired a precisely aimed barrage that disabled the Korth flagship's propulsion systems. The massive alien dreadnought tumbled helplessly through space as the rest of the fleet fled toward the jump point. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm system. "Nice shooting, Captain. Board that ship and recover their intelligence files. I want to know where their next targets are." "Understood, Admiral." Boarding parties are already en route. The human Marines who boarded the Korth flagship found the crew cowering in their escape pods. The aliens who had seemed so fearsome during their invasion were terrified by the prospect of fighting humans in close combat. They surrendered without firing a shot. 3 days later, Admiral Chen stood in the main hall of the Zalarian capital city on Zalara Prime. The Crystal Building had been badly damaged during the invasion, but the surviving Zalarians had worked tirelessly to repair it. Their harmonic voices filled the air with songs of gratitude and joy. Belthin approached the human admiral with slow, careful steps. He still could not quite believe that these deadly creatures had come so far to save his people. "Admiral Chen," he sang in carefully translated Galactic Standard, "the Zalarian Confederacy owes you a debt that can never be repaid. You saved our civilization when no one else would help us." Chen smiled and bowed slightly in what she hoped was a respectful gesture. "We did what anyone should do when they hear a call for help. Your people are safe now. The Korth will not return to this system. How can you be so certain? Because word is already spreading through the galaxy about what happened here. Every species will hear about how the Korth invasion was defeated. Pirates and raiders rely on fear and intimidation to control their victims. Once people realize they can be beaten, they lose their power. Elder Morden moved forward on shaky legs. The ancient Zalarian had lived through centuries of peace, but the invasion had aged him terribly. "We do not understand," he sang softly. "Why did you come? Your species barely knows us. We had never even heard of humans before you arrived." Chen thought about her answer carefully. How could she explain to these peaceful crystal beings that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting to survive? How could she make them understand that protecting the innocent was one of the few things that united all of Earth's fractured peoples? "Because someone had to," she said finally. "Because leaving good people to suffer when you have the power to help them is wrong. Because that is what it means to be human." The Zalarians exchanged glances that glowed with bioluminescent patterns. They were beginning to understand that they had been rescued by a species unlike anything else in the galaxy. "What happens now?" Felthin asked. "Now you rebuild," Chen replied. "We will leave some ships to help with security while you repair your worlds. Our medical teams will assist with treating the injured. Our engineers will help restore your mining operations and planetary defenses. And in return?" Chen grinned. "In return, maybe you can teach us about your harmonic technology. And maybe we can teach you about defensive strategies. I have a feeling that if we work together, we can make this part of the galaxy a much safer place." Over the following weeks, the unlikely alliance between humans and Zalarians began to take shape. Human ships patrolled the system's borders while Zalarian scientists shared their knowledge of advanced communications and materials science. Human engineers learned to work with crystal-based technology while Zalarian students studied human military tactics and defensive strategies. The news of the victory at Zalara spread rapidly through galactic communication networks. On peaceful worlds, beings who had lived in fear of Korth raids began to whisper about the humans and their impossible victory. On military outposts, alien commanders studied reports of human tactics and tried to understand how such a small fleet had defeated a vastly superior enemy. And, in the dark corners of space where pirates and raiders made their plans, a new fear began to spread. The galaxy was no longer safe for those who preyed on the innocent. There was a new force in the stars, one that would cross any distance to protect those who could not protect themselves. 6 months after the Battle of Zalara, Admiral Chen received a priority message while reviewing patrol reports in her new office on the Zalarian capital world. The transmission was from Earth, but it had been forwarded through a dozen relay stations across human space. "Admiral," the message began, "this is Fleet Command. We have received over 300 requests for assistance from species across the galaxy. Apparently word has spread about our intervention at Zalara. Everyone wants the protection of the Terran Defense Forces." Chen looked out her window at the crystal spires that were slowly being rebuilt. Zalarian children played in the gardens below, their voices creating beautiful music as they sang to each other. Human and Zalarian engineers worked side by side on new defensive installations that would prevent any future invasions. "Send a reply to Fleet Command," she told her aide. "Tell them we will help anyone who needs it. Tell them that is what it means to be human." As the message was transmitted back to Earth, Admiral Chen smiled and returned to her work. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone was probably calling for help, and when they did, the humans would answer. After all, that was what Deathworlders did best.